So how long have you been guiding? This isn't a new thing for you, I don't think.
No,
Right.
so I started my guide service. January will be 9 years that I've been guiding full time. Um, and before that, I was working for the Orvis company for 8 years and um, was guiding probably 5 years part time when I worked for Orvis. So I've been in, guiding probably about 14 years, but 9 of those being full time and
Good,
all in
good.
Arizona.
Right, right. And you've done a ton of videos, I've noticed. I was looking back and you were helping Fish and Game and everywhere, everything. You've got videos everywhere. You're you're out there.
Yeah, I've been very fortunate and I think, Orvis was a great stepping stone for me. When I worked for the Orvis company, I was there for 8 years. And, when I worked for Orvis, not only was I building the Orvis brand, I was also building my brand, which, it helped me get quite a bit of following, especially here in Arizona, but it also helped me to travel a lot. I got to see a lot of things and do a lot of things that I might not have been able to do had it not been for Orvis, fishing around the world. And so, that really helped me to build my name, build my brand, and then the videos and stuff and the guiding, kind of followed that.
Got a question for you. Especially
Okay.
for because we want to reach out to all aspects of the audience. Um, Something that I've been really interested in that I've never personally dealt with because it's mainly on the backside. As a female in a heavy male style of industry, how was it coming up? Was it easier being able to be in with ties with Orvis, or I mean, is there an easier route, or was it how difficult was it coming up in that? Because whether we like it or not, I don't look at it that way, and a lot of us don't look at it that way. We look at a fisherman as a fisherman. It doesn't matter if you're male or
Fisher
female.
woman.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just like I'm gonna show amount of respect, but unfortunately, we know that there is different driven. Was it difficult? Was there a lot of hurdles that you had to jump across, or walls that a typical route wouldn't see? Not to get political, I'm just
So
really curious.
no, that's a really good question. And I'm going to tell you guys a story that this will be the first time that I've really told this story publicly. People who know me know my story and know how I came up. But the first time that I applied to work for the Orvis company, now keep in mind this was 17 years ago. Things had changed a lot, not only across fly fishing, but across the Orvis company as well, as far, as they're trying to do the 50-50 on the water and that sort of thing. But the very first time I applied to work for the Orvis company, I went through all these interviews. It was for a fishing manager position. And I went through all these interviews and everyone thought I had the job. And there was a district manager who was coming out to interview me. And it was supposed to be, just kind of an approval kind of thing. And he looked at me in the face and he said, "Men don't want to buy fishing gear from women." And I did not get hired.
And that's what's
So that
scary.
was my first time that yeah, well, yeah. And, and so that was the first time I applied for the Orvis company. I went back and applied for a part-time job later on. They hired me for a part-time job. I quickly became the top selling, uh, uh, you know, associate in the store. They fired the fishing manager that they hired instead of me, and they asked me to reapply for the fishing manager position.
Hell
And
yeah.
I was the only female fishing manager, and I became the top fishing manager in the Orvis company. And it's
Congratulations.
because I had a point to prove, and my point to prove was men do want to buy fishing gear from women, or they don't care that it's a woman as long as it's someone knowledgeable. And so my whole thing was I really, really just wanted to prove a point, and I proved that point.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
One
congratulations on
way
that.
to get over
Great
that
job.
hurdle.
Yeah.
And that's what I love to hear because, like you said, whether we like it or not, the fly fishing industry can be a good old boy program. I mean, it really is, and that's what we're trying to get away from. Put the right person in the right position, and pay it forward. I mean, I want like people below me. If somebody's brand new around me struggling, I'm always to the point where I'm going to stop what I'm doing. I'm going to walk over to them. I'm going to give them my fly, talk to them. Hey, this works really well here. This works really well here. because that's going to be the future of our industry. If we get so stuck in mind, like, oh, I'm not going to buy a rod from a woman, she just doesn't know. That's just, it's ignorant and it's stupid. And I I'm I love hearing stories like that of you succeeding and kind of throwing it back in their face, being like, "Gotcha. Maybe you should have hired
Right.
the right person for the job the first time." And
Yeah.
and so I mean, because we hear it going on the other side so many times. Unfortunately, social media is a double-edged
Yeah,
sword, and that, I mean, everybody thinks of, oh, the women in the industry are just wearing bikinis and holding up their boyfriend's fish. No, there's women in the industry right now grinding harder than probably most of the male guides out there, grinding harder, not only because they have something to prove, because they have just as much passion.
well, and the other thing that I think happens with women, and I do say this quite often, I do feel like we do have to work a little harder in this industry. I think that, if I have a bad day, if my client has a bad day, you don't want it to be at a point where I've gone out with that woman kind of deal. And I do think that we still have to work harder. Even after I got that job and I was the fishing manager in the Orvis company, the first sales job I had to do was myself. Someone would walk in and I would have to talk the talk and walk the walk and, show that I know what I'm talking about. And then they would go, oh, well, she does know something. And then that opens the door for me to sell gear or whatever it is I'm trying to sell or get across. But I do feel like we are still in a time where, it's not automatically assumed that women know what they're talking about and know what they're doing in this sport. Even though there's nothing about fly fishing that requires crazy amount of strength or as anything that women can't do. Obviously that is not the case. And unfortunately, I still think that we are still selling ourselves and selling our ability and trying to make it known that we do know something and we do know what we're dealing with. Though I do think that that is getting easier. I would hope it's getting easier for the women who are now coming up through this sport. But again, there is absolutely no reason that a woman cannot be great at this and excel at this. I row a drift boat. I launch a drift boat. I do all of those things, and there's nothing about it that, I can't do, and that any other woman, can't do.
Exactly. And you're absolutely right. It's still going on now, because I guarantee you, um, people will look at this video podcast and they just instantly jump in and be like, "Oh, fly fishing vet. Oh, I bet you that dude's freaking fishy as hell and he has all this knowledge and shit." I'm like probably one of the newest guys in here, and it's just like, no, jackass. I go, talk to the person out there.
Yeah.
And it's just like, and I can definitely, and I've seen it in the industry, and that's why I enjoy talking about it, because I think if we talk about it and get the word out there, that personally, me, I don't give a rip if you're a woman or male. If you know your shit, then freaking spot on this rocket.
Yeah, that's one of the things you got to be careful with, is because I think I do it too. I walked into a store and I judge who's ever working there, male or female. So, I want to see if you know your stuff. I don't care if you're male or female, but if a male guy comes up to me and says some, a couple things where you're going, that's totally wrong, I'm out of here. So it's still it's, you know what I mean? I don't want you to think that everybody's doing that just to you. We do it to everybody, at least the guys that are not judgmental. I don't care if you're male or female, but I'm also judging the males. I went to a shop in Stanley, Idaho. It was a young woman working behind the counter, and she blurted out, she says, "I don't fish." And I'm like, okay, well, how is she going to help us? Next thing I know, 2 minutes later, she knows her stuff. She knew her product. She knew everything what we needed. And, I asked her, I said, well, how did you get all the knowledge? But you could tell she knew her stuff. She goes, well, all the guides come in and they tell me. So she didn't even fish, but she knew which line you needed. She knew which fly you needed. And I was like super, impressed with that.
Yeah, that's got to be even tougher, than
Yeah.
fishing every day. At least she doesn't have a bias towards it. You know what I mean? She's like, okay, this stuff's good. This is good.
Yeah, they were in this morning. This was hitting yesterday. Oh, give me 5 of those and let's go.
Yeah, let's go.
So
Cinda, I got a question for you. So would you have any advice to tell people that are wanting to get into the guiding, Do you have any advice for anyone that's looking to get into it?
I would say, the way I approached it was, I obviously worked for the Orvis company, which is a big company, and it really helped me to understand gear, and people and people who fly fish in this industry. And for me, it was a great stepping stone. And I would say, one, get with people who know how to fly fish, who know what they're doing, and go out with some guides. And that's how I came up to this sport. I was lucky that I found a fly fishing club, that there were a bunch of guys in it who like to do trips and like to get guides. And man, that is a really quick way into this sport, is to go on guided trips, to fish with people who are better than you. And I tell people that all the time: if you're going to fish with someone who knows more than you do, because you're going to absorb that knowledge and you're going to absorb what they're doing and what they can teach you. If you can work for a fly fishing company to get a foot in the door, that's also a good way to start. There's a bunch of guide schools out there now. I don't know anything about them. I didn't go through a guide school. To me, it's kind of weird, but I know that there's a lot of places that are now requiring you to go through a guide school if you don't have any guiding experience.
Yep.
I mean, that's certainly a thing to do, but I would say, learn how to cast, learn how to instruct. I spent 2 years with master certified casting instructors, really not to, obviously working on my own cast, but really working on that instruction aspect, because the worst thing a guide can do, or anyone can do, is pass on their bad habits to someone else, because in a year, they're going to be looking to try and figure out how to get rid of those bad habits. So, is learn as much as you can and learn the right stuff, learn how to really instruct, learn how to break a cast down. Guiding is not just about throw a fly out, men left, set the hook. As guides, we are teachers, we are instructors, we should be teaching the right stuff. And I truly, truly believe that. And I can't tell you, when I worked for Orvis, how many guides came through that door and we went outside to cast and they couldn't even throw 30 feet. And I was like, devastated that these people are on the water instructing other people and they don't even know how to cast themselves. So I would say, do your homework. Learn this sport.
That's awesome. I could tell.
And I'm not knocking on guides. There are some great guides and some great casters. That's not at all what I'm doing. I'm just saying, if you're new coming up, really put in the work.
Yeah.
This is more than fishing,
And that's some great advice. And I could tell, just from talking to you, like, your passion behind it, which is awesome. And you're in it for the right reasons. And today's world, I think, maybe I'm wrong, but I think a lot of people start fishing and then, like, the second year they're like, oh, I'm going to go be a guide. Like, that's like the kind of end goal of the dream right there. I've thought about it myself. I think most of us have at one point in our lives. But I love the fact that you said go fishing with someone that's better than you. You're not the first person we've heard that from. There's truth to that, and you got to kind of be humble.
You're only gonna learn so much from yourself.
Exactly.
You're only gonna learn so much from books. You're only gonna learn so much from YouTube videos, and half those videos probably aren't even good videos. Who knows who's making them? Who knows what's out there?
Though, right? You're in the good half of those videos, right?
Oh yeah.
Right.
I don't think YouTube existed when I tried
videos.
to learn how to fish.
I don't think internet was up when you tried to learn.
Hey, that's probably true. I still don't know how to
was
work
the
the
first
internet either.
Hey, smoke signals were the first internet, you guys. Sorry, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's great. But you're only going to learn so much from yourself is the reality. And so if you could find someone better than you to fish with, you're going to be much better off. Now, that other person, obviously they're going to be the one teaching you, but if you can pull it off, it's, you'll learn so much more.
Well, I think as a new angler, you go into Orvis or any fly shop, you're going to spend a lot of money on gear, right? You don't have to buy everything at once, but you're going to spend some money on gear. And it's almost like, what's the point if you don't know how to use it? Like, take some of that money and buy a lesser valued rod and spend it on a guide.
There you go.
And find out if you like it before you dump all that money into gear.
Yep.
And you'll learn so much going out with that guide for a day, more than you'll learn by yourself for 2, 3, 4 years.
So a quick question, and I'm not sure if you know any possibly nationwide aspects of where they can reach out, or if there's groups or whatever, or even in your area. For, and I hate even categorizing it, for if there's any women out there that just don't feel comfortable going out with a male, or maybe the guys in their AO are just dicks. I mean, right, wrong, or indifferent, there's a lot of freaking guys that are just assholes. Um, is there any kind of groups out there they can reach out to? Is there any groups that, I mean, men or women, really? I hate to like categorize, oh, just women, but unfortunately, there are a lot of women that I've run into that would prefer to have like some kind of female group or female contact. Is there any like nationwide that you're tracking? I haven't, because I just not very social, but I know somewhere out
there's
there.
there's a women of Trout Unlimited group. That's a good place to start. A lot of them have, I think there's Trout Unlimited groups now just about in every state. And a lot of them, are starting a Women of Trout Unlimited side group for that very reason. And, if there are women who want to learn from women or who feel intimidated learning from men. There's a group on Facebook called, I think it's United Women on the Fly. Heather Hodson, she's part of Trout Unlimited. She's leading that group. So there definitely are resources, and especially if you can find a women's group like that online, then you can get, referrals of 2 women guides and women instructors. If you're looking for an instructor, you can go to the Federation of Fly Fishers. They have a list of all of their certified casting instructors. You can see, with phone numbers and email addresses, so that you can reach out and contact someone to help with casting. And I'm sure that there are women who are certified in most areas at this point. At least it's getting to be much bigger. But I'm going to say that for me, that was never a thing. I never felt like I had to learn from women and had to only be around women. Heck, 17 years ago, I would not be fly fishing if that was the case.
Right.
Because 17 years ago, we didn't have this big movement that we have now to attract women into the sport. So, I would say male or female, find people you're comfortable with. I've gone out with a lot of male guides. I've had a lot of male casting instructors. The majority of my clients are men. I don't want to make this a men against women deal, because it's not a men against women deal. This is to be inclusive. And so for me, it's finding who is the better guide regardless of sex, who is the better instructor regardless of sex. But if there's women out there who feel like they need that, then that is available. Absolutely.
Cool.
And, there's a group called, Real Women. They do women's only fly fishing trips, different places. So there's, the sky's the limit.
Awesome.
Very cool.
Like I said, not to beat a dead horse, but unfortunately, the way the world is right now, we know it's there. And that's why I kind of want to skim on it. I mean, it's just like we're trying to accommodate everybody in this, and I greatly appreciate the info. And like I said, it's just like I know you're just like us. You're like-minded on us. It's like I don't care who or what or where you are, as long as you're the best person for the job that's gonna be able to help me or help somebody I'm recommending to you. Just get it done. Just go fly. Just go fish. I mean, I look at it as a passion.
And if we have time for a quick story, I'm going to tell women, if you walk into a shop and some male asshole is being an asshole, put him in his place. And I will tell you a story. I went to the Bass Pro Shop in Las Vegas, and I'm happily going to throw them under the bus because this guy was a jerk.
Love it.
I go in the fly shop. I was already guiding full time, had a guide service. I walk in looking at fly tying materials, and this older man, probably works part-time, walks up to me and, hey, little lady, what are you going to use that stuff for? And I'm like, to tie
Maybe
flies. The same
purse.
thing you're right. I'm gonna put some feathers in my hair,
Yeah.
the same thing that you're gonna use it for. I'm gonna tie some flies with it. And then he, and I'm trying to suggest there's a guy looking at rods that he maybe go help that guy look at fly rods, right? But of course, no, he wants to bug me. And so then he starts telling me, every fly I could possibly tie with the materials that I'm looking at. Like, there's no way that I could have this knowledge. There's no way that I would possibly know what flies I could tie with these materials. And it was so condescending the way he was talking to me and the way he was approaching me. And I just finally said, you know what? I said, look, I know what I'm doing. I know what these flies are for. But if you want to compare dick sizes, I said, I guarantee you my dick is bigger than yours. And I said, if you want to walk outside and cast a fly rod, I guarantee you I'm a better caster than you are. And it was
Nice.
just like, and finally he left me alone and he walked away. But my point is, his whole assumption was that there's no way I could possibly know anything about this sport.
Which
Definitely put him in his
absolutely,
place.
which
Yeah.
absolutely throws me off. That people don't understand. Perfect example. I mean, like, you think about it. Women have been in the industry since like around the 50s. Joan Wolfe was absolutely an amazing fly fisher. Actually, I think forget what company it is. They just came out with a line of wolf line, in remembrance of her, which is pretty cool.
Well, she's a part of Winston, so it's probably Winston Company because she's been in Winston for a long time.
Yeah, and so I mean, and a lot of people and everybody thinks fly fishing, and it's just like when I think fly fishing, she's definitely on like the register of like radar of what I think, and there's so many people out there that probably have even never heard of her, which is ironic because she made such a freaking she has such a passion for it and such a huge amount that she's brought into the industry, and she's absolutely amazing. Um, but people are just so ignorant, and it throws me off to this day. If you're listening to this, it's 2021. Pull your head out of your asses. We're here to love this sport. We're all here. Let's make this sport last long. Unfortunately, and this is kind of another question I wanted to lead into. How has your guiding changed since? And me and Ryan kind of agree on this. Since fly fishing has become a trend, more of a trend, less of a passion. People just want to get a fly rod because it looks cool on Instagram. Has that been an influx on your side where you see a lot of continued customers coming back, or is it just the guy coming through and wanted to try fly fishing once or twice because it looked really cool and he's seen it on social media?
So that's a good question. So the thing that I see changed fly fishing a lot was COVID. The last 2 years, the influx to our forest has been insane. The amount of people who are destroying our forest is insane. I've seen so much trash, people driving off road, just driving across streams, breaking laws. I mean, it's 100 times worse in the last 2 years than I have ever seen it before that. Now, to answer your question, I think that's what we're seeing a little bit of as well, as people who, want to be outside. It's safer. Maybe they aren't traveling like they used to. Maybe they aren't doing all the trips that they used to. And so they're trying to do more things in their own state, which is going to include some outdoor stuff. What I'm seeing from a lot of those people is that you can tell they're used to going to Disneyland because they're used to someone cleaning up after them. They go to the forest, they leave their trash.
Yeah, I like your
They leave their crap, right? That's the way I see it is. And look, there's nobody in the forest who's going to clean up after you, so pick up your own shit. Right? Yes. I mean, that's the reality of the deal. But I really try. I'm the only full-time guide in the White Mountain area of where I live. And because of that, I get to be a little bit picky about the clients that I take. I don't want to guide the tourist. I don't want to guide the person who comes up here and says, I'm just looking for something to do today because I'm bored. That person is never going to catch on. They're not going to try very hard. They're probably not going to catch any fish because they're not going to try very hard. And this sport, as you guys know, I'm preaching to the choir, there's a big learning curve on this sport, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yep.
it's not
You don't
like,
say.
it's not like I can pick up right? You can't pick up a spinning rod, add a weight, throw it out there, let a worm sit on the bottom and just sit there for 2 hours and drink a beer. I mean, you could, it just probably wouldn't work very well.
Yeah.
But
beer
so
part
this
was good.
sport requires, this sport requires a lot more than that. And so, you know, when I have people call me to guide, I have the luxury of being able to ask them questions and what their goal is. And I like to be my guiding style is very instructional. I like to help people get better, whether it's learning how to get to water, where water is, how to fish that water, how to cast, whatever it is that they need to learn. And so what I'm saying about really is I tend to interview my clients a little more than that, because I want to guide people who really want to learn to fly fish, who are looking to get better at this sport, and who I think are in it for the long haul. If you're just up here for something to do for the day, I'm probably going to refer you to someone else. And you know, and that may sound mean, but you know, I think that we're better served to teach the people who really are in this sport because they want to really be great at fly fishing.
I love it.
Yeah, and the word, you know, ambassador, especially in today's social media, gets thrown around pretty loosely. But the truth of the matter is, and I love it, because when you get into fly fishing, you become an ambassador for the sport, right? And I know, myself included, and most other people, probably everyone in this room, when we got into fly fishing, we got into it because we were looking for that, I don't know, that little extra that's just not like just casting a rod, but like, okay, I got to figure out the certain fly, how much weights, you know, this and that. There's all these different weird lines. It's kind of overwhelming when you get into it. But once you get into it, it almost comes naturally. You start getting into the nature aspect. You start getting into the preservation of your parks and stuff like that. And I think that just kind of flows naturally in the fly fishing community. Would you agree? Is that how it is over there?
I do agree. I do think that it is interesting that the mindset in fly fishing tends to bring people in the sport. I don't know which came first, right? Was it that we were conservationists before we were fly fishermen, or we were fly fishermen before we were conservationists? But somehow this thing correlates with each other, you know. And I don't know many people who fly fish who aren't about conservation and about clean water and about keeping things clean and about picking up that trash, you know. And you know, we're here to educate people, and guides are also here to educate people. You know, it drives me crazy when you hear about Forest Services limiting how many guide permits that they're going to allow, because they're going to allow 100,000 fishermen, and the guides are the ones who are taking care of the land and teaching people to take care of land, conserving, teaching people to catch and release, teaching people to take care of these fish. And in my opinion, we need that.
Yeah.
We don't need to limit that. Now, I will say I'm not in an area where we're covered up with 10,000 guides. I would probably have a different outlook if I was.
Yeah.
But in general, to me, but in general, I think that we have that opportunity, regardless of who our client is, to try and pass that on and to try and teach them something.
Very cool. Have you
You know,
had any like returning
that's how I
customers
look at
come
it.
back?
Oh, I have a lot of return
Yeah.
clients.
That's cool. That's to me, like, I don't know. I like to tie flies. So when I send my flies out to people and they catch fish, like that's my payoff, right? I'm like, yes, somebody caught a fish on my fly. I would imagine, you know, being a guide, like when you have that returning customer, whether it be every year or whatever it is, that's got to be such a great feeling.
It is. I have a client who books 14 back-to-back days with me every summer.
Cool.
14 days straight. Now, we don't always go out 14 days. I actually get some days off in there, but I get paid for 14 days.
Oh,
because
man.
there might be a day where, right, guides, they paid days off, right? Paid vacation. But, you know, it might be day 3 and he's tired, you know, because our stuff is backcountry, it's hiking, it's small streams, it's, you know, it's unforgiving. We don't have big rivers where I can throw somebody in a drift boat, you know, and we can drift all day long. This is work. My stuff is work. And so on day 3, he may not want to go out, and that's great. I get a day off and we might have dinner together or something like that because he's also a friend. But yes, I mean, and you're right, having return clients is a vote of confidence. It's definitely, people appreciate you. They appreciate what you show them. And that's a thing that happened in COVID. When COVID first hit, I mean, I don't know about other guides, and I'm sure a lot of other guys experience this as well. I had clients calling me just saying, hey, Cinda, I want to buy a gift certificate because we don't know what's going to happen and we want to support you. And we want to make sure that when things open back up, that you're still in business. And so the client guide relationship goes way deeper than a client guide relationship. It's a friendship that's built. It's a trust that's built that hopefully will last a very long time. And I'm sure that you guys have been out with guides, and I'm sure you've had those same relationships with some of the guides that you've had.
I am actually probably the only one that's never been with a guide.
It
But
shows.
What?
yeah,
And it shows. Don't worry, it
and-
shows.
um,
I heard the comment about
Just-
bad
and-
casting habits.
it's just because of where I fish. I don't have fly guides a lot in my area. I think we have one shop, but he's like an hour and a half away. But I've always told people, I've always recommended them. And because it's one of those things, good, bad, or indifferent. Going out with a guide, you're going to remember for the rest of your life. And it's just like either it's going to go out there and you're going to catch this amazing fish and have this amazing time, or you're going to remember it because you went out there and you got your ass handed to you and you came back with nothing. But either way, people are going to remember this for the rest of their life. And it's just like, and the cool thing that I was thought, because when I looked at trying to become a guide, is, man, it'd be cool to sit there and be there and share that experience with somebody that maybe caught the biggest fish ever, or just came out for the first time and slayed fish all day long, or just had a shit month and was able just to get that breath away from everything, and give him the opportunity to just come out here and rock it and just relax and enjoy the view and catch some fish. So I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I think people who have the right idea when they're going on a guide trip, to me, it's not about how many fish you catch. It's not about the biggest fish you catch, although that happens. We see that a lot. It's really about, what did I learn? Am I a better angler after this? When I go fish by myself next week, am I going to be a better angler because I went on this guide trip? And hopefully that answer is yes. Because for me, my goal with every client, I know that a lot of my clients, especially my younger clients, I know that they are just wanting to get better. And I know that there's a chance they're going to outgrow me, and I'm going to teach them everything I can possibly teach them, and they're not going to need me anymore. And that's okay, because that's my job. My job is hopefully to make you a better angler tomorrow than you were when you showed up today.
Heck yeah.
And so, and I would hope that that's most guides' goal, is just to pass on our knowledge and what we know and help you become better. And I think that's why that's why I always got guides, is because I didn't really know what I was doing, or maybe didn't know how to fish a fishery that I was going to, or whatever it was. And I've always left with a lot more knowledge than what I showed up with. And to me, that's the goal.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
Go back to a comment you made about how things have changed specifically the last couple of years with COVID. Same in Colorado, for sure. So many more fishing licenses have been sold, which is, good and bad, right? But how does that impact where you're at with fishing etiquette? What have you seen change, good or bad, with all the additional pressure out in the forests and on the land and on the waters?
Well, I certainly can tell you that there's a lot of people who have no idea about fishing etiquette. And I think that that's actually, unfortunately, getting to be more and more the case. I think when I first started fly fishing, which was, probably about 96, 97 is when I started fly fishing. And back then there was a lot more talk about fishing etiquette and about, what happens if you come upon someone on the stream, and, what you should do, and, and that's not really happening anymore, so, luckily for me, as I said before, most of my stuff that I fish is backcountry. I have places that I could take you on a holiday weekend that you would swear we own the forest, because we don't see not even another vehicle. But that's because we have some really cool remote waters. But if you go to where everybody is, I mean, it's tough. I mean, you try to educate people, like if I'm hiking up a stream and I come upon some anglers, I'm going to go talk to them, whether I'm by myself or I'm with clients. And I'm going to ask them, hey, where did you start? Where are you going? Our waters are super small. They're super clear. Our fish are spooky. So I might hike up a mile and give them a mile of water to fish, and not walk the stream, walk away from the stream. And I would hope everyone else would do that to me, though we know they're not. We know people are coming and jumping right ahead of you. We call it in the guide world, they're high holing you. And, and all you can do is try and educate them without getting into a fight, without getting confrontational, and just hope that works, and hopefully that they'll remember that you came and had this conversation, and that you were, my goal, if I do that, is obviously we're trying to catch fish, but we're also giving them plenty of water to fish so that they have fresh water to fish as well. But it's really hard. And I think that we just have to do a better job, whether it's, blog posts or posting on social media or whatever, or YouTube videos. But I do think that we need to do a better job of educating people, about how to get along on the river.
I agree.
And I think it's kind of up to all of us.
I
I
agree.
just think like there's not as much of an awareness out there on etiquette as there are on some
Right.
things. You see a lot of stuff lately, it seems like, about fish handling techniques and things like that, which are great. But just the education on etiquette, I don't see a lot of it out there on social media. So I think you're onto something.
Yeah, and what's really weird is like sometimes, and it shouldn't be this way, but I've seen it, where I live, we get a decent amount of tourism through. I wouldn't say this is like a destination for fly fishing, but we do get a lot of out-of-staters that do fish here, whether they're passing through or whatever it may be. And one thing I kind of notice is it's and me fishing other states, it should be the same across the board, right? Hey, like Cinda said, hey, I'm gonna be down here, if you're going up there. But it's really crazy because like you go to like some other states, or certain people from other states will come, and like it's almost like everyone's etiquette is different when it should be all the same across the board. You know what I mean? That's kind of my experience, what I've seen. Some people aren't as nice as others, I guess. I wanted to kind of touch on again. So you mentioned spooky fish earlier. So where you're fishing, and I don't know what this looks like, do you kind of have certain areas that you guide all the time, or is it just kind of like wide open, like you could take people wherever you want, or do you have certain leases? But more importantly, like if you're going to these new areas, how do you approach those new areas, especially with the spooky fish like that? Like, especially from a guide's point of view, like how do you approach that water?
So we have a combination of forest and reservation. So we have streams on both, but our streams are small. It's probably exactly what you would think Arizona would be like. We have a lot. It's all natural streams. It comes off mountains that are used for ski resorts, so it's all wild stuff. But because it's low and clear at times, our fish are really, really technical. The way I approach it, no matter which stream it is, whether it's a new stream I'm on or something that I fish all the time, it's if you can really think about trying to get your fly to the fish before the fish know that you are there, you will do yourself a huge favor. Because with our fish, once they're aware of you, they're just going to hunker down. They're going to spook. They're going to hide. They're going to stop eating. It's going to be over. It's not like a big river like the San Juan River, for example, where there's 14,000 fish per mile, where literally they're bumping your leg trying to get you to, to move so they have some food. I mean, this is fish that, even if they don't spook off, you'll have a big fish that literally will just hunker down and play dead. And
Yep.
he's just, they do nothing, and you could drift 1,000 flies over him. It's not going to matter because he's not going to eat. And so, once that happens, once you see fish that are spooking or taking off, then just move to the next pool. That's a great thing about small stream fishing is you always get a new chance. You always get a new opportunity to throw a cast to fish that might not know you're there. So that's really the goal. First cast, most important, because that cast needs to be at the right place. If there's an undercut bank or under an edge of a rock or wherever those fish might be hiding, that first cast is important. And just, no more than 5 casts per run, and then just keep moving. And that's the goal in small water. It's just fly to fish before they know you're there. I don't do, people talk about crouching down and crawling up to the stream. I don't do any of that. I don't need to do any of that. If you can cast and you can get the fly away from you in a timely manner, you don't need to crawl.
Yeah.
But that's the thing is fly to fish before they know you're there and you will catch fish.
Have you ever had one of your clients do it just because you didn't like them? You need to crawl up here.
We're
Best way to
crawl
attack
through
this one.
Not yet,
We're-
Gary,
we're
but you can
400
always be a
yards from the
first.
river.
Next
Yeah, I know
summer,
we have to
No.
crawl in.
next summer, Cinda, I'm coming up. You can try it out on me.
But I have clients that do that, and I ask them why they're doing that at times. And they're like,
Well-
"Oh, I got to sneak up on them," and I'm like, "No, you just need to make a good cast."
That's because
You
I saw it
know,
on
the
a
reality
video.
is-
Yeah,
Yeah.
they saw it on a video.
Yeah, there's
Exactly.
only one place that I've ever been to where you legitimately need to crawl up. And actually Gary's been there. Is Yamsey. It's just like because of where it's at, they can actually feel it has a really big undercut, and so they can feel the vibration from walking up. And
Wow.
so what we'll do is we'll crawl up to the edge line enough to where we're about a rod and a half away from the bank, and then we'll cast in from there.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. But then you walk 10 feet down and stand right there next to the water, drop it in the hammer. It's a weird
yeah.
fishery.
And so
It's a cool fishery, but yeah.
So on your waters, with being small, something that I am a big streamer guy, but one of my best friends got me into Euro nymphing. Is that pretty popular up on your guys' water, or are you guys throwing like a lot of traditional?
You can't you can't really get that close to them. To your own nymph, you kind of have to be on top of the fish. And I would say, we have a couple of bigger pieces of water, like maybe the Black River. When it's up, you could Euro nymph, but you really need to be behind those fish. Once you're to the point where they might actually see you, it is game over. So to me, Euro nymphing isn't really the way to go in our super small water.
Are you talking
know,
like
you
a
can-
20, 30-foot minimum cast kind of situation?
Yeah, well, no, there are times that you could get a 40, 50-foot cast. Just depends on how open it is.
Okay.
And that still goes along with the, if I can throw a long cast, I'm going to throw a long cast just because it's farther away from me for those spooky fish that might not know I'm there yet. But I don't know. I'm just not really. I just haven't really gotten into Euro nymphing yet. But partially because we don't really have the water for it.
Yeah, yeah, because I mean it's definitely a technique where now Kent, I know if he would, that's first my one of my best friends is that's all that dude does is, but I mean he's very successful at it, like scary successful. And so I mean it's just out there. There's some guys out there that are so locked in to one side, Gary, that it's just because fly fishing, like you said, it has to learn. And so I've tried every aspect. I've chucked from Tenkara all the way down through freaking streamer, dries, nymphs, and all the way down into Euro. Because I mean, the more tools you have in the toolbox, the better options you're gonna have to get out there. And stuff like that.
Yeah, and and even though our waters are small, I mean, I fish streams that are 10 feet across, and I still throw streamers.
Oh yeah.
Because throwing streamers, you're going to find your bigger fish, that you may not even know you're there. I took a year and decided to do nothing but streamer fish during that year. And that's all I did. And it'd be cloudy and there's all these fish rising. And I'm like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever decided to do.
I'm with you. I'm with
You
you.
taking notes, Gary?
But then
No.
I found fish in our waters that most people don't even know are there.
Yes.
Exactly.
You go after
when
the
you're
quality
pulling-
instead of quantity.
Right. And when you're throwing streamers and you're bringing 24 inch browns out of water that's 10 feet across and 2 feet deep. Most people have no idea those fish are even there,
I'm one of
or
them.
they think they're only caught in the spring and the fall. But if you really dedicate time to learn how to strip streamers in small water, and in one piece of water, that big fish might be a 14, 15-inch trout, but it might be a trout you've never seen before because you thought they were all 8 to 10-inch fish.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
That's just
So my streamer in that water might be a size 8 woolly bugger. It may not be a big articulated
yeah.
nymph or streamer or whatever. The fly's size will change, but you still are going to find your bigger class of fish, and a lot of times fish that you never even knew were in those waters.
Yep. So
I would agree.
I fell in love with micro streamers. Like
Yeah, they're a blast.
micro articulated streamers are probably one of my favorite. I do a feather changer. I can't tie that standard game changer material. I don't know what it is. I could tie it. I hate cutting it. So I just tie micro freaking feather changers, and I bounce in between 2.5 inches, maybe 3 inches, and holy crap, it's a whole new ball game, and it's just like it's nutty. Now with your water, with it being so small, do you guys have restriction on how many hooks you can throw there? Is it are you down to just you can have one hook? Is it probably
Barbless and all the rest
I
of the
throw
stuff.
barbless no matter what, no matter
Right,
where
but
I'm at. But
right. What are the rules?
I mean, yeah, I mean it's
So
there's so many out there.
yeah, so Arizona has a 2-hook law, period. You cannot have more than 2 hooks. So if you have an articulated streamer that has double hooks, that's all you can fish because you can only have 2 hooks. If you're nymphing, you can have, 2 nymphs or whatever it is you're using, but it is a 2-hook law, period. Doesn't matter if you're bass fishing, doesn't matter if you're trout fishing, you cannot fish more than 2 hooks in this state.
Nice.
And the laws will be different per fishery as with everywhere else. There are some places where it's barbless required. There are places where you could, fish treble hooks. It just depends on the fishery.
Nice.
But
I think that's important. So if
we're
you're going
not.
out fishing, people, look up your local regs.
Yeah,
It's just
for
like
sure.
that,
Yes.
and they change all the time. Just don't assume, oh, this has been, this is my granddad fished this freaking like 20 years ago. I'm gonna go out there and chuck this freaking whatever. No, look it up. Make sure they're still open. Like Oregon has seasons. It sounds like Arizona has seasons too, where they shut the rivers down for trout. We can still go
Yep.
chase salmon steelhead, but we cannot keep the trout. So find your local freaking wildlife. Go out there, look at your regulations, make sure you're doing the proper thing, make sure the water that you are on is open and respect it. Quit being freaking dirty birds.
Go out
And
with a
check your
guide.
regs every year.
Yep.
Every year regs change. We have fisheries that the laws change. And that always happens on January 1st. So every year, familiarize yourself with, whatever. For us it's Arizona Game and Fish, but whatever it is that you have, familiarize yourself with those laws, because just because you don't know what the law is isn't going to get you off the hook.
Exactly.
For
And I
sure.
would say I would say a few times a year, because I know Ryan, I know Colorado runs it every once in a while. We ran into it. Hoot Owl. I mean, it's just like there's been guys that I've had to talk to and be like, hey, fishing shuts down at noon, guys. And they're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, yeah. I mean, it's fucking 103 degrees out here. And it's just like, damn right, it shuts down at noon. And so a lot of people don't understand that and stuff. So, I mean, just pay attention, do your research, and it's huge. I mean, there's so many people out there that they just don't know where to go. I think if you just don't know, you don't know. And I think we're running more into that. I think that has to cross over back into etiquette, just kind of the river rules. There's such a flood of new people coming into fly fishing, and not enough people educating them as they're coming in. And it's just like, and so
And
they just don't know.
And what's the percentage of those people do you think have never walked into a fly shop? And I think that's our big issue right now is, the people who are out there to educate us and to help us get better are your fly shops. And with the internet right now, I could buy everything I need online and never have to walk into a fly shop, never talk to anybody about anything and just not know much about regulations or the sport or whatever. And I think we really, 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 really need to talk more about our fly shops, shopping local, supporting local. Don't buy it online. Call your shop. They're happy to ship to you. Talk to them. They're happy to give you information. And to me, that correlation between all what I'm going to call the yahoos who are breaking the law, don't care about the law, whatever it is, I think there's a correlation between our fly shops that aren't doing so great, the internet, and that angler who's never even talked to anyone to get educated.
Yeah, because I mean, and as me looking as a customer, um, it is. I mean, it's so much easier for me just to jump on, not knowing, just jump on Amazon and order something real fast and be here tomorrow.
Mhm.
And the thing is for the longest time I looked at this, and I got fly buddies that run fly shops now, so I've really changed my mind. But I went into it very ignorant. My initial instinct as a fly shop was, oh, they're probably a bunch of assholes and they're way overpriced, and all that. But and don't get me wrong, they're out there. I hate to say it, they're out there.
Sure.
And you especially see it in tourist areas. Um, I don't know if they're just disgruntled and the prices are high because, I mean, honestly, we always see it. There's always a guy out there that looks like a fucking Sims catalog walked on the river, and he has no clue what the hell he's doing. And it's just, and they got suckered into it. I mean, it's just like, I mean, that's just how it is. But I've always, for the longest time, I looked at fly shops like, man, there's no way I can afford anything coming out of there. And it's just like the guys I would walk into would look at me like I was an idiot because I was brand new and had no info. And they're not all like that, guys. I promise you. I've been in some amazing fly shops, even name brand like Orvis and Sims shops, where the customer service has been outstanding. The prices aren't any different than anybody on the market.
And so those prices are set, by the way, in the fly
Yes.
fishing world. If you try to sell, if you're a shop and you're trying to sell Sims or Sage or Orvis or any of these brands for less than what the market price is, they'll take your dealership away.
Yep.
I mean, so, are some stores having sales? Sure. But, the thing is, in reality, in theory, you shouldn't be able to buy it online for a different price than what you can buy it in a shop unless it's been discontinued and they're trying to clear it out.
Yeah.
And those things are put into place so that shops can make it.
Yeah.
But
And I think that's,
I don't know. I'm
everybody looks at fly fishing stuff. I mean, because honestly, whether we like it or not, we can look at similar material walking into a fly shop and then look at similar material looking in Bass Pro Shop for like half the price. Everybody thinks, oh, it says fly fishing, so it's double the price. I hate to say it is. I mean, you're going to pay for what you get. And so I think it's one of those frustrated things. Like you said, some products that come in like Sims, Orvis, the shop has really no say on the price that they can put on there. It's almost like a contract. It has to be this price. Here's what it is. And so for them to push that, they've got to have that price. They can't go much cheaper. One, or they're eating into their cost, which shops got to make money. And two, they like you said, they can lose their contract, and then they're screwed. I mean, it's just like they can't do that, and so they have to abide by their rules too. And it gets rough. I mean, and then people that are coming in now, especially noobs, I always tell them fly fishing is not cheap. I mean, you can go cheap. It's great to start cheap. But if you're invested into this sport and this passion, it costs money, and it's going to cost a lot more money than it is spin fishing and stuff like that. And I think that's what people need to prepare for if they're going to try to really get into the sport. I mean, I couldn't imagine the cost that from guiding from Orvis to rocking on your own. I bet that was nutty. I mean, because you got to think about it, because you got to have enough rods on hand, enough reels, the lines, the material, all this. that costs you a shitload of money. even at freaking guide prices, it's still not cheap. Um, so
Well,
I borrowed from my 401k and started my business.
there you go. I think a big part of
Yes.
it, is building those relationships, like we talked about earlier. I'd be lying if I said that I have bought every single piece of fishing gear that I have from the local shop. There, of course, money, right? There's been that item, like you mentioned earlier, Cinda, that it's a closeout item from last year. Well, that's
Sure.
awesome to me. I'm gonna go buy that, but I
Sure.
still am gonna go to the fly shop as much as I can, and it's because of that relationship. I've been pretty fortunate. I've been kind of like all over and into a lot of fly shops. I mean, I just ordered something, I lived in Alaska for a few years. I just ordered something from their fly shop, and that's to help them, but also because I love the product, and also it's the relationship that we have. Even though I'm not there, I'm still going to support them. And the local fly shop here probably takes half my paycheck. So, but it's that relationship, I love it. I would much rather give my money to them and see them grow than some random company, where I don't get to see the output of that. And that money I know is also going back into like most local fly shops are doing something for your local area, conservation efforts, stuff like that. And I'd just like to support that. So I think that's a big part of it personally.
Well, and I read something recently that said if you shop at a local business, 52% of your money goes back into the local economy. And if you shop online or at a big box store, 14% of that money might end up in your local economy, which is another reason to shop local, because you're supporting local, you're supporting the people in your community. And don't get me wrong, we all like to buy online. I live in the middle of nowhere. My house borders the forest, right? I don't have a fly shop. I order some things online because I have to. But I have a friend who owns a fly shop in Phoenix, and when I'm down there, I shop in that store. I do a lot of promotions and stuff for him and everything that I can. There it is, AZ Fly Shop, Chris Rich. You bet.
Yeah.
You guys have
They
seen
don't
his
know what
stuff.
they don't know. They don't know him. They don't know him. And I didn't let him in on it, so they don't know what that means.
That's a good plug, though.
Oh, it's a great plug. And
But
yeah.
but they're a great local shop, and they just opened this past March. I mean, so, but
Yeah, I've spent
again,
over
I don't know.
500 already.
Yeah, Gary, go. Good for you. Me too.
And then I brought a friend in who spent over 1,000, the beginner, and he wanted to go, and he's gone. I took him down there and said, "This is the best of the best."
Yep.
He likes the best, so we took care of it. And sitting here, I got to go back down. It's 2 hours for me to go down, but you know what? That's no big deal. Let's
Mhm.
go.
Well, that's a
So,
good,
how often
good
are
put
you there?
mileage on your new car.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. How often are you there? I mean, I went down there one time, and you were there. Did I just happen to get lucky that day?
You probably did. So I've worked in there a little bit for him just to fill in, because obviously I have a fly shop background.
Right.
And I've done some seminars and stuff for him, and I'm sure I'll do that again in the spring. We just put together a Pyramid Lake trip, where we're going to take clients, which I typically do every year. I didn't do it last year, just because of COVID, but we're going to be back to Pyramid in March, and so I'm doing a lot of stuff in partnering with the shop, which is good for all of us.
Very cool.
Yeah. What is he doing Thursday nights? I'm actually going to go down there and try one of those as soon as I get squared away. I'm
that'll
down
be
to the fly
never.
shop. Exactly. He has a Thursday night. Just come on in and fly tie.
Oh, cool.
By
Like
time,
an open
mhm.
thing.
Yeah, they've got a bunch of people that know what they're doing. They're all they're all volunteers. It's just like a club in his fly shop. They just all come down and share and talk. And if you need help, those guys are there. They want to help. And I've heard some great things about it. I have not experienced it yet, but it sounds awesome.
Heck yeah.
Curious,
local
Cinda, with
shows.
your background and years in the industry, what would you tell your younger self today if you were going to go back and do something different? Something, I don't know, lesson learned, I guess, or even if it's just somebody new coming into this that doesn't have that experience that you have, what would you tell them?
For me, it would be about being a woman and about don't be intimidated. I wanted to learn to fly fish long before I did. I grew up, 2 older brothers. I love to fish. When I got a vehicle, you didn't have to worry about where I was. I was going to be fishing somewhere, but back then it wasn't fly fishing. It was conventional spin, bait, whatever. And then when I decided that I wanted to learn to fly fish, I walked into a fly shop several times and just felt intimidated. And part of that was the first time I walked into a shop, the question was, well, who are you going to buy this for? And it's like, me.
Hey,
Yep.
And so that would be my advice is, there's nothing about the sport that you can't learn. Don't be intimidated by it. Ask the questions, do the homework. And I probably would have started fly fishing so much earlier had I done that. And I would say that to everyone else. This sport comes across as being intimidating. There is so much to learn, and there's so much information out there that it can become really overwhelming and very difficult. And, what I did was I joined a local club, and that helped a ton, to decipher a lot of that information and a lot of that, stuff that conflicted itself. But it's not as hard as it looks. Give it a shot.
yeah,
Heck
I
yeah.
like it.
Cool.
Well, there is a lot to learn, but you don't have to learn it all within the first year. That's
Exactly.
the thing. It can be intimidating, but you could take it at a slow rate. It's like, time and time
Keep
flies.
it simple.
Exactly. Work. Yeah. Let it come to you. It will come to you.
Yep.
All of us are fly tires. And the other day I had somebody in my garage that knows nothing about it. And I was showing them my midge. And they're like, well, what's that? And then I go in this whole expansion about what a midge is, how it gets there, how it comes up. And I go, wait a minute, I never studied it. I never went to school. This was just from experience being around it and doing it. And that just comes with just time. And again, the passion just spills out of all of us. So that's what I enjoy is all of us, the love of the sport. And it's there.
Yep.
It's awesome.
Find a couple of, find a few knots that are easy for you to tie and that hold, start with a decent brand rod. It doesn't have to be the most expensive on the market. You'll know when you want something else, which will probably be pretty quickly.
Yep.
But, buy things as you need it. You don't have to go in and spend $3,000 on the first day and then end up with a bunch of stuff that you don't like and don't want and will never use.
Yep.
But get started. And once you get started, don't go 2 years without fishing. You lose it. If you don't use it in this sport, you lose it. Fish enough that you retain that information and that you continue to learn.
Good advice. Yeah.
Heck yeah.
It's one of those I'm glad you said it, from the financial situation, it's definitely a want versus a need sport because there's a lot of shiny things out there.
No, it's a need. It's a need. Come on, Ryan, it's a need.
I like your style.
There's
I'll
an
tell you.
employee at a fly shop.
We're gonna have to have an entire podcast related to like money and fly tying materials because I tell you what, I'm a kid in a candy store. I go in, I don't know what that is. I'll probably never use it. I probably have 4 of them on my desk already, but it's new and I need that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's
I'm
like,
glad I met Dave because he likes the off-color streamers. I don't fish here, so I get to send them to him.
Hell yeah.
yeah, it's
I'll
like
take it.
sitting in front of the flight vice. You almost have to be like, hello, my name's Robert.
Yeah.
I've been an addict for like 6 years now.
I'm a material hauler.
All right.
Have any of you thought actually about getting a rooster so you get those fine feathers off of his chest?
I've thought about it a couple
I'm like,
times.
Why do you
I'm
think
driving around my neighborhood. I hear him. Where the hell
Yeah.
is he?
Why do you think I have a rabbit? It's like free W.
It's a bald rabbit. It's a
Yeah.
hair. It's in certain parts.
He molts twice a year, and I'll get like a huge bag of free dummy every year. So
Well,
Hey, you might have noticed we like to joke and have fun. So that being said, I do have another question for you.
All right. Okay.
Tell us about your either most embarrassing, craziest, whatever moment that you've had on the water, either alone, with someone, with a client, you name it.
Maybe the client did it.
Yeah, right.
So I have 2, but I'm going to tell you. So there's a super remote stream that Arizona Game and Fish opened up a few years ago. I will not mention the name because I've never seen another person down there, and I don't want that to change.
Keep it that way.
So
next year,
but
you
they
and
had
I.
just
you and I.
opened it. It had been closed for the reintroduction of Apache trout. We had a big fire. The wallow fire came through, took out the fish barriers. Rainbows got up, Apaches got down. You know the story. And so, so they had just opened the stream and it's super remote and there's just all kinds of signs of animals. So I'm hiking down with clients. I have my dog. She's with me on a lot of my guided trips. She is really good about alerting me when things are there that I can't see because she hears and smells them long before, we do. So we're hiking down this switchback and it's the very last corner and she takes off. Well, the time we were there before, she saw a deer. I figured she was chasing the deer. I get to where I can see her and she's chasing the biggest black bear I have ever seen down the trail.
Holy cow.
This is like a 400 to 500 pound black bear that my little 40-pound, healer pit bull mix is chasing. She chases it down the trail and they're running up the middle of the stream, her and this big bear. And I call her, and when I called her, and imagine this dog is the happiest you've ever seen a dog. She's just like, this is just fun for her. And so she stops and she turns and looks at me and the bear turns around and now the bear's charging her. So I'm yelling. Her name's Jules. Come on, Jules. Come on, Jules. And she starts running back to me and she has this super fast run. And I'm thinking she didn't even know she was in trouble. And this bear is like 10 feet off her hindquarters, chasing her back to us. And we're screaming and we're yelling and trying to make ourselves look big and all the things they say to do with a black bear. My client's got a 9mm pistol. He's got it drawn, which wouldn't do much to the bear, but hopefully the noise would scare it. And this bear gets probably 20 yards from us when it finally sees us. And we're in wading boots and waders. We're not going anywhere fast.
You're a human burrito.
We're right. We're kind of slowly backing up the trail. But when it saw us, man, it just stopped, looked at us, turned around, ran upstream, which is where I was planning on fishing. So I was like, okay, guys, we're going to hike down another mile.
Yeah. I wasn't mad before, but now I'm mad.
Talk about high holding.
And when we came back up the trail at the end of the day, there was fresh bear scat. So I know he was just trying to make it up the trail and had, and the dog not chased it off, we would have literally turned that corner and been face to face with that bear.
Holy smokes.
Dogs are great to bring on fishing trips. Best fishing partners I've ever had. Sorry to all my buddies out there. I love you, but dogs are my best fishing buddies.
What's the other one? You said you had two?
So the other one was the time that I thought I was going to die in the wilderness. So I went to this super remote lake. It's this little lake that has grayling in it and Apache trout. Really remote, catch and release only because it has grayling and Apache trout. And I had some half-day clients, and we're getting there for the afternoon. And we show up, and there's these two vehicles there. And one of them had pulled off the road and is blocking the path. So he's up against the lake in a stand of trees. And we just wanted to get over to the dam because we're just going to fish a few hours, And I asked the guy if he would mind letting us go by. And the guy just was angry. And he gets in my face and he's like, I've never been so disrespected in the forest. And I'm like, we just want to go fish, man. We just want to get by and go fish. And he keeps coming over and he keeps getting in my face, and about how disrespected he's been and how horrible a person I am for asking him to move. The reality is they were fishing bobbers. They were bait fishing. I don't know what else they were doing illegally, but it was pretty clear they were doing some illegal stuff and they were just pissed off that we were there. And so I told my clients, let's just get our waders on. We're just going to fish the side we came in on and we're not going to worry about them. And man, he just kept coming to me and getting in my face. And I finally just said, you know what? I said, I have a satellite phone and I have several game rangers on speed dial. And I've sent messages to several of them and let them know that we're here so that they can come out here and deal with whatever it is you have going on. Now, that was a lie. I didn't have a satellite phone. We're in an area where there's no cell phone signal. If I would have disappeared. God only knows how long it would have taken them to find me. But they immediately packed up all of their stuff and left.
Heck yeah.
But of course, before he left, he had to come and get in my face and tell me that it was my fault, that we've ruined their day and they're leaving because of us. And I'm just like, okay.
That is
I took
crazy.
pictures of their license plates just in case they came back and anything did happen. Maybe they'd find my phone, the last pictures on my phone. But it was a pretty sketchy moment. And it's the only time that I've ever really felt like I might end up dead in the forest.
Yeah.
Scary thought.
That
Yeah,
is
I mean,
crazy.
it's
Yeah.
scary. I mean, whether we like it or not, there's, especially when you start getting into these remote areas, people think they can do whatever they want, and they can, and so it's just like always have it. That's what I tell my guys too. Even working through Project Healing Waters, always have your head on a swivel, and it's just like one. I always remind them, always look up, pay attention to surroundings. When you're gonna see some beautiful freaking fly fishing. Is the nice thing is about fly fishing, you're always gonna have amazing scenery. Um, but it also is like one, it forces you to keep an eye on your buddy, and two, it just pay attention to surroundings, whether there's wild animals around or just assholes or whatever. It's just like always pay attention to surroundings, and it's just like always have a backup plan, always have a freaking just a safety issue. I mean, I hate to say it nowadays. It's you've got to, even if it's just going to the downtown freaking in town freaking stream. You never know. I mean, it's just like always have that. Like we have usually when I go and I'm looking at get myself one, it is one of those spot remote locators. You just hit it. If stuff starts going to shit, you hit it. It's all satellite driven, and it instantly sends a message. I think up to 2 people, and pings your GPS location.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I have since gotten one of those Garmin InReach because the majority of the places where I'm at, there's no cell phone signal.
Yeah.
And it's not, and so if I get injured, if I have a client that gets injured, and I think the subscription is like $15 a month, and with that's $15 a month, you get unlimited SOS calls. And I think like 10 text messages a month if you want to let somebody know that you're okay, or maybe you're not okay, or whatever's going on.
Oh, for sure.
But there's certainly a good thing to have. And I've started carrying bear spray.
Oh heck yeah.
Smart.
Yep. Very cool.
And that's another thing too is bear spray isn't necessarily just for bears. I mean, it can
Nope.
work for it works great for assholes. It works great for freaking other little bugs. I mean, you're gonna run into all sorts of animals. I ran into bobcats and cougars and bears and freaking there's all sorts of shit out there. And bear spray is a good thing to have on you, even if you're not in bear country, because it detours anything that's gonna come after you.
Yeah, I had an experience with some bear spray. The safety may or may not have been left off of it in the car door, and my gym bag out. The nozzle was pointing towards the door. My gym bag drops on it, and I'm a grown man rolling around crying in the parking lot because I am covered
Oh
in
my
orange bear spray.
gosh.
And I'm gonna tell you right now, that will stop anything. I couldn't see for 3 days. No, I'm just kidding. That
Holy
stuff's
crap.
hardcore. Yeah, first-hand experience. Got it.
Good to know.
Yep. Tell you what, you'll never leave the safety off twice after that.
Oh man, that's the truth.
And I'm not sure about riding with you either in that car door.
Oh man. So Cinda, I hate to put you on the spot here because I know you live in an area where you guys have some truly unique and very beautiful fish. But if you had to pick, what would be the most memorable fish for you? It could be the one that got away, or maybe it's the one that got in the net. What would that look like for you?
There's, we always have that fish. But does it have to be Arizona?
No,
anywhere.
No.
So one of the things that I love to do that no one really talks about is fly fishing for pike in Alaska.
Nice.
Been there, done that. Amazing.
People go to Alaska for salmon. They go to Alaska for trout, grayling,
Yep.
Dolly Varden. They don't necessarily go to Alaska for pike, but where I like to go is an area that is so far north that there's no salmon or trout that live. It's pike and sheepfish, and this area is north of Antioch. The last time I went, I took clients. We go to a place called Midnight Sun Trophy Pike Adventures, and they have a houseboat sitting off a slough, off of a river, off of the Inaku, which comes off the Yukon. And the day we got there, fishing was great. We put a bunch of, 40-plus-inch fish into the water or into the boat. And then the temperature dropped 10 degrees. The water temperature dropped 10 degrees. I don't know if you've done much pike fishing, but pike just sulk. They just all went to the bottom. We fished for 3 days, just trying to dredge anything up. I had people who had switched to conventional rods, doing everything they can. And these fish, they weren't going to eat. They were just pissed off. The last day we were there, every fish in that river came up. You would throw a fly, start the strip, and you would have 3 or 4 fish following it. I landed a fish that we measured just over 50 inches on that last day.
Holy crap.
Holy cow. What size rod were you using?
There wasn't a tiger muskie.
Was that
I
an
think
8?
I was on a 9.
9?
I think a 9 or a 10.
Glass 3-way.
And lunch. So there were 6 of us fishing, and by lunch, between 6 of us, we had landed over 80 fish that day.
Holy smokes.
Because every pike, that water temperature adjusted, and it was just like every fish wanted to play. And we all kind of got together for lunch, and we heard the same stories of every cast, 3 or 4 fish following. It was an amazing freaking day. And that 50-incher, and I know I had people travel all over the world, on that trip trying to get a pike over 50, because that's kind of the deal, is everybody wants a pike over 50. And if you want a big pike, don't go to Canada.
Yep.
Go to Alaska. The big pike are in Alaska.
Everything's bigger
There
in
you go.
Alaska.
There's
It
my fish.
seems.
So
True.
I gotta ask
There's
you
my
after
fish
hearing
story.
that, how many you still got all your fingers, right? They're all there.
Do. That's why we get guides, so the
Yeah,
guides can handle those fish.
Smart.
Oh yeah.
For sure.
That's awesome.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. That's very cool.
Yeah, you're
That's
welcome.
Are we ready to wrap this up? How you guys feeling? Cinda, how you feeling?
I'm good.
Very informative. I like it.
Cool.
Thank you.
So Cinda, with that being said, I'm gonna open the floor to you. This is your time to just kind of let everyone know what's on your mind. If you want, you can go ahead and let our audience know if they were looking to get a hold of a Cinda Howard guide in Arizona when they come there. How would they get a hold of you?
Well, so I'm on Facebook under Flyfish Arizona. My website is flyfisharizona.com. They can call, text, email, anything that they would like to do. I'm happy to show them around what we have to offer. Just so you know a little bit about Arizona, we have the largest continuous ponderosa pine forest in the world. We have several different ski areas. And I'm telling you that just to let you know that we aren't all desert. We aren't all Sedona. We aren't all the Grand Canyon. We aren't all saguaro cactus. We have some great fishing and some great fisheries. And it's a fun place to be. And the great thing about Arizona is we still have a lot of remote wilderness. We still have a lot of places we can go to get away from people, places that you can go that you might actually be the only fisherman there that day, which is a good reason to have that satellite phone we were talking about. But it's a pretty well kept secret, and we have some really, 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 really cool stuff and really great backcountry. And I'd be happy to show anybody around.
Awesome. Well, thank you for coming on here with us, and thank you for being part of this. So this is
Thank
Guide
you,
Cinda
guys. It's
Howard
awesome.
with Set You Free Outdoors podcast. Thanks for listening.